My name is Evelyn, a woman who spent the best years of her life alongside my husband in a small house on the outskirts of Denver. That house was not just a place we built our home, but a treasure trove filled with gentle memories, laughter, tears, and hopes overflowing with dreams for the future. The walls still bore peeling paint marks from the countless times my son Mason ran around mischievously, making me both exhausted and full of love. Every little corner of that house held a piece of the soul of the small family we once had. I remember a peaceful Sunday morning when Mason was still little. I woke up early to prepare breakfast for him. The aroma of buttery pancakes filled the tiny kitchen. Soft sunlight streamed through the window curtains, gently resting on my son's tousled hair. Mason sat in his high chair, his eyes sparkling with excitement as he eagerly ate the neatly cut squares of pancakes, always asking for a few extra fresh blueberries. I clearly remember his laughter, the awkward questions as he tried to take his first unsteady steps on the old wooden floor, his tiny hands gripping mine tightly as if searching for absolute safety. Those moments created an invisible bond, a strong thread between mother and son, making me believe that no matter what life threw at us, a mother's love would never fade. Then, everything changed when my husband suddenly passed away from an unexpected stroke. That pain swept through my life like a violent storm, taking away the only man I had ever depended on and built our home with. The little house became eerily silent, and the sound of a child's laughter seemed more lost than ever, with only Mason and me left. I tried to be strong, hiding the deep pain inside to be a steady support for my son, to keep him feeling safe in a chaotic world. After months of struggling with loss and loneliness, I realized I needed to do something for Mason, the young man growing before me, the son I wanted to see completely happy. Mason and his girlfriend Lauren had dreamed of a wonderful wedding since high school, a day when all friends and family would gather to share in their radiant happiness. I decided to sell the house my husband and I had nurtured, using the money to give my son a grand day, the dream wedding Mason and Lauren had always wished for. I imagined standing beside my son on that joyful day, shoulder to shoulder, wearing a proud and happy smile. I would be the gentle mother, the close friend, an indispensable part of Mason's new family. I thought that when he walked up the aisle, his eyes would find mine, thanking me with a warm hug and sweet words full of gratitude. But the reality was far from what I imagined. The wedding took place at a luxurious ranch beneath the Rocky Mountains, where lush green meadows stretched far and wide, and twinkling fairy lights hung in the gentle evening breeze. Everything was perfect beyond fault, yet I was pushed aside, turned into an invisible shadow on my son's most important day. There I stood, wearing a pale pink dress I had chosen long ago, my face lightly made up, my hair carefully styled, yet no invitation bore my name, no guest list included me. No one greeted me warmly, no one offered me a seat of honor. I was led to a small table placed beside the restroom, next to a storage closet, sitting on a simple folding chair. The pungent smell of garlic and onions from the kitchen drifted to where I sat, mixed with the lively laughter and chatter from the reception room, squeezing my heart painfully. I tried to keep calm, fighting back tears. I saw Mason, my son, standing there laughing with Lauren and her family, his eyes shining with happiness, but never once looking my way. I was just a ghost, invisible in their happy picture. The stories they had once told me about their high school days together, future plans, shared dreams, all seemed like one-sided memories where I no longer belonged. During the reception, I overheard spiteful comments and cruel whispers from the guests. Some murmured that I was a woman who had sacrificed too much, that I was nothing to Mason anymore. But the most painful was hearing my son's loud laughter, as if confirming I no longer mattered in his life. I smiled quietly, kept my silence, though my heart was breaking. I knew there was nothing I could do except wait for the right time to fight back. Then I made a phone call, the call that set off a chain of events turning all our lives upside down. I found, in an old archive, a secret, a truth I never thought I would reach. And from that moment, everything changed. Not just for Mason, but for me as well. I recall many other beautiful memories with my husband and my son. I remember the days I sat beside Mason, sewing patches onto his worn jeans when money was tight, the sleepless nights nursing him through colds, the times he cried because friends teased him, and I promised I would always be there to protect him. I remember little Mason always wanting pancakes with extra blueberries, his eyes lighting up with simple joy, a joy I once believed would last forever. But love and sacrifice weren't enough to keep me in my son's life. There I stood, amid the glittering lights of the party, engulfed by the deepest loneliness. A forgotten mother, a silent ghost, yet still holding an endless love for my son in my heart. Mason's wedding, my son's, was held at a luxurious ranch beneath the majestic Rocky Mountains. The space stretched over lush green meadows, grasses swaying gently in the breeze, fairy lights hung everywhere like stars fallen to earth. Rows of white chairs stood neatly on the vibrant grass, ready for the grand ceremony I had quietly poured my heart into creating. Lauren, the bride, wore a custom-made gown, magnificent and so expensive it made me ache. Its value could have bought a good car I once dreamed of owning. Everything, from the horse-drawn carriage, to the harpist flown in from Boulder, to the lavish cake featured on a bridal magazine cover, was carefully and perfectly arranged, each moment finely crafted as if it was their day, Mason's and Lauren's, not mine. But I, the woman behind it all, the mother who had sacrificed her life for her son, had no honored seat to call my own. No name card bore Evelyn in elegant script, no invitation placed on a special chair. I was pushed aside to a shadowy corner next to the restroom, sitting on a plain folding chair, nothing more. Around me mixed the strong smell of hot food from the kitchen and the faint perfume of the guests. Laughter and happy voices floated from the banquet hall, each sound a sharp dagger piercing my heart. I sat there clutching my small purse tightly, fighting back tears. My heart ached in pieces, as if a smoldering fire was burning deep within my soul. Mason, my son, the one I had loved and cared for my whole life, stood nearby laughing with Lauren and her parents, his face radiant with happiness, never once glancing my way. I was a ghost, invisible in their joyful frame. I recalled every detail of that day, Mason adjusting his tie, his bright smile, his happy eyes beside Lauren. They looked like a perfect, warm family, while I, the mother who sacrificed everything to give this to him, was pushed to the sidelines of their life. I was an outsider, unwelcomed, uncherished. Every time Mason laughed, I felt as if thousands of tiny needles pricked my heart. Their laughter echoed in my ears, but I could not join it. I just sat there, trying to stay calm. But the loneliness and pain crept deeper into every corner of my heart. I imagined those past days, when Mason was small, holding my hand tightly, when he needed me most, when I was his entire world. Now, I had no place in Mason's world. With each passing moment, I felt my heart being squeezed tighter and tighter. I looked around at other families happily gathered, close ones sharing warm laughter, while I, a mother, sat quietly in a dark corner, feeling like an uninvited guest at my son's happiest day. I remembered sleepless nights by Mason's bedside when he had a high fever, patching his torn clothes with scraps of fabric, quietly listening as he shared his dreams, the small things that made him happy or sad. I remembered little Mason, with pure eyes, always believing his mother would be there forever. But now, on the most important day of my son's life, I felt abandoned, forgotten, as if I were an unnecessary burden. That pain is indescribable, like a deep wound bleeding silently day and night inside me. I tried to hold back, but every moment there made me feel the coldness, the unbridgeable distance between me and my son. Mason, who once held me when I cried, now laughed joyfully with others, as if I had never existed in his life. I forced a weak smile, not wanting to cause a scene, not wanting to ruin my son's day, but inside was a storm of anger, disappointment, and hurt. I knew my sacrifices, my love, had been repaid with silence, with ruthless rejection. That night, as the sparkling lights dimmed, as the evening wound down, I left the banquet table, my heart heavy with unspoken thoughts. I realized that sometimes, no matter how much we give, we can't hold on to certain things. Love, at times, isn't enough to keep someone by your side. I made a phone call, a simple one, but it marked the beginning of a chain of events that would change my life forever. Because in that old archive, I found a secret, a piece of the past I never knew existed, a truth powerful enough to overturn everything so that I would no longer be a ghost in Mason's life. That night, under the dim lights of the ranch, I stood alone, filled with loneliness, but also with a firm resolve, not to be forgotten, not to lose myself completely. I am Evelyn, a mother who once loved her son with all her heart, and now I will find myself again, no matter how much pain I have to walk through. After a wedding that sparkled like a dream, Mason and Lauren moved into a spacious new home, a classic villa in the suburbs of Fort Collins, gifted by Lauren's parents as a wedding present. The house radiated elegance and refinement, with large windows opening to a meticulously cared-for garden, white picket fences, and a wide front yard perfect for outdoor parties. It was the dream home anyone would desire, a symbol of success and newfound happiness. I, Evelyn, was not invited to help with the move. I don't know if Mason thought of me during those busy days, but all the information I got came through Facebook. Photos of Mason working hard, carrying boxes, Lauren smiling brightly with her family. From the shadows of my small apartment, I quietly watched the screen, my heart tightening with the growing feeling of abandonment, of being forgotten with every picture. I recalled the years I devoted my youth to building the family, to caring for Mason's every meal and rest, to sacrificing everything just so he could grow up peacefully, with a bright future ahead. I used to think, when Mason grew up, I would be his companion, sharing every moment, even the small simple evenings together. But now, that image faded, replaced by coldness, distance, and indifference. One evening, for some reason, I decided to visit Mason and Lauren's new house. I brought a small bottle of wine. Not expensive, but carefully chosen, hoping to start anew, to blend in, to be welcomed, even if just a little. I wanted to rebuild relationships, to no longer be an outsider in my son's life. When I stepped onto the porch, my heart raced, but I tried to stay calm. The door opened. Lauren stood there with a thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. Before I could greet her, she turned away, leaving me standing there with a dog barking inside. Mason appeared behind her, head down, looking at his phone, as if he didn't see me. The house was perfectly arranged, but there was no trace of me. No old photos, no small keepsakes from our past. On the dining table, food was already prepared: bagged salad, jarred pasta sauce, convenient but cold, with none of the warmth of family. I wasn't allowed to help set the table or clean up. We ate in silence, the TV quietly humming in the background, a heavy distance settling between us. During dinner, Lauren took a call, put it on speaker with a mocking laugh. "We have to keep the old lady happy. Free help is still help." Mason chuckled on the other end, offering no protest. Those words hit me like a dagger. A mother who had sacrificed her entire life, her youth for her son, now only seen as an unpaid maid. I sat quietly, said nothing, too drained to fight back. An emptiness spread throughout me. Silently, I stood up without saying goodbye, and left that grand house under the yellow streetlights. Outside, the cold air bit sharply, mirroring the loneliness and disappointment flooding my heart. I wondered, what did my love, my sacrifices mean in my son's life? Years of hard work, sleepless nights caring for Mason's fevers, mending torn clothes, morning breakfasts made with all my love. How could all that be cast aside? I once dreamed Mason would grow up to need me, to cherish and be grateful for me, but harsh reality taught me that sometimes unconditional love is met with indifference, seen no better than a servant. I stayed silent, but inside was a storm of anger and pain. I hurt from being forgotten, abandoned. I was angry that all I gave wasn't enough to keep a place in my son's heart. That pain is unspeakable, bleeding silently day and night deep inside me. But I still love Mason, and I hope. Though I longed for happiness, even as I was abandoned, after that night, I knew I could no longer live in the shadows of invisibility. I had to find myself again, to live for me, even though the road ahead promised hardship and pain. I was no longer the quiet, invisible mother who sacrificed without recognition. I would rise to reclaim what was mine, my dignity, my peace, and the right to be truly loved. Love sometimes is not unconditional sacrifice. Sometimes love means knowing when to let go to protect yourself. I learned that costly lesson in the dark nights of my life, amid the silent tears falling deep within. October came with Denver's sharp chill, bringing a mournful wind that swept through every street corner. I, Evelyn, received a pristine white envelope, sealed tightly, but carrying a harsh decree. I had to leave the small rented apartment I had called home for so many years. A cold notice without an ounce of sympathy, reminding me I no longer had a place in the city where I had lived, cried, and hoped. I sat there, in my silent living room, the letter clutched in my hands, my heart wrenching. I was nearly 60, an age not easily forgiving or beginning anew like the young. I had lost too much, my husband, my family's warmth, and now even a place to belong. The sense of being cast aside, abandoned in the city I once called home, weighed heavily on my frail shoulders. The small apartment was no luxury, but every corner held countless memories. Where I spent sleepless nights caring for Mason when he was sick, where I sat by the window gazing out at the city with dreams unfinished. Now I was forced to leave, given no time to prepare, no chance to keep a final shred of peace. I began the search for a new refuge, but it was far from easy. Day after day I called, visited landlords, sent rental applications, only to face cold rejections. "We don't rent to seniors. The vacancy has been filled. Deposit requirements are too high." Each refusal shattered my heart like icy stones. I felt like a burden no one wanted to bear. Once I went to a small apartment complex. The manager looked me up and down with suspicion, then bluntly said, "You know, at your age, renting here is very difficult." I tried to explain, to share, but my weak voice was drowned in indifference. I left quietly, my heart full of frustration, wondering if wanting a simple home was such a crime. Many nights, I slept on a friend's makeshift couch or in cheap motels paid for penny by penny, wrapped in overwhelming loneliness. Those long nights, while the city peacefully slept, I lay awake with jumbled thoughts, feeling like a leftover in this world. I blamed fate, and even my son for forgetting the mother who sacrificed everything for him. Tears soaked my pillow every night, yet they couldn't wash away the pain of abandonment. I asked myself, what did I do wrong? Why does no one need me anymore? The emptiness grew so vast I feared I would be swept away by the cold winds outside. Then I remembered Ruth, my aunt in Denver, who passed quietly without fanfare, leaving me an old house in a historic neighborhood. That house stood for years, weathering sun and rain, witnessing countless life stories, waiting for a caring hand, a warm breath of family. It might not be perfect, but it was mine, a place where I could start again. I decided to go to that house for the first time after months of sorrow and despair. Standing before the old wooden door, touching the rough brick wall, I felt a faint hope. Though the house was worn, windows foggy, floorboards creaking, I still saw it as home. Renovating was a great challenge for an old woman like me. I had to find repairmen, buy materials, and sweep away the thick dust time had settled. I remembered healthier days with my husband, when he helped lift floorboards, when we painted the faded blue walls together. Now it was only me, alone bearing all the work, from the big tasks to the smallest details. Some stormy days, soaked and exhausted, I stood at the doorstep wondering if I should give up. But then I thought of Mason, of my late husband, of old dreams, and my belief that no matter how hard life got, I had to stand strong. Step by step, I turned the dilapidated house into a new home. I hired Carl, a skilled and sincere property manager, who reminded me of my husband, a hard-working, honest man, always keeping everything under control. Carl helped fix the electrical system, replace worn carpets, and repaint the doors with warm earth tones I carefully chose. I chose a warm earth tone with great care. I began planting pots of lavender on the balcony, welcoming the gentle sunlight streaming through the windows. Each morning, I'd sit by the window, sip hot tea, breathe in the fresh air, and feel life slowly stirring in every breath. Day by day, I was greeted with friendly hellos from new neighbors, single mothers, lonely elders, and young people with dreams and plans. I was no longer an invisible ghost, but a woman who could share, who was heard, who was valued. Though my legs were tired, my hands roughened by work, my heart brimmed with determination and will. I opened a small cafe called Moonlight, a place I dreamed would be a warm haven for everyone, a spot where anyone could feel cared for, where they belonged. I know life is never easy, especially after loss and in old age, but I also know I've found a part of myself again, a refuge, a small flame flickering in the dark. I will keep walking forward, alone if I must, through hardship, because I've learned how not to let myself fall. I still remember the lonely nights, the rejections, the tears no one saw. But today, I stand here stronger than ever, with a new home and a heart full of hope. As things settled, just when I thought I could begin a peaceful life in my new home, an unexpected letter arrived from the bank, changing everything. I was informed of an inheritance of $500,000 from my late husband, a final gift, a miracle when I thought there was nothing left to hold on to. After opening the small cafe called Moonlight, my life gradually filled with simple yet deep joys. Moonlight wasn't just a place for coffee, it became a second home for me and many others in the neighborhood, especially seniors like me, who had lived through many ups and downs, sometimes feeling lonely and lost. Every morning, the first thing I did was step out onto the quaint balcony beside the cafe to tend to pots of lavender, hydrangeas, and other favorite blooms. My aged hands carefully picked dry leaves, watered each plant as if they were my dearest friends. The gentle floral scent filled the air, bringing peace and calm to me and the visitors. Being so close to nature, even on this small scale, was a precious remedy for healing the wounds of my soul. Slowly, Moonlight attracted a group of regular guests, especially elderly neighbors nearby. They came not only for the good coffee, but for the warm atmosphere, the genuine welcome, and the feeling of belonging, something many seniors still sought. There was Mrs. Judy, a kind woman who always wore a purple shawl, Mr. Charles, a retired art teacher with eyes shining with passion and creativity, and many others, each carrying their own stories, their priceless life experiences. I felt happy witnessing everyone gather, chatting over hot cups of coffee, sharing health tips, gentle exercise routines, and secrets to keeping a joyful spirit. Those intimate talks not only helped maintain better health, but built a strong community where everyone was listened to, where empathy was deeply felt. You know, Moonlight isn't just a cafe, Mr. Charles once said to me on a sunny afternoon. It's where we find joy in life, our second family. That feeling was mine too. After so many long years of loneliness and sorrow, I finally found a place to come home to, a peaceful refuge for my soul. Every day, I saw smiles, warm eyes, and the growing bonds between people who came here not just for coffee, but to build a loving community. I also organized weekly gatherings just for seniors with varied activities, art classes, book clubs, and gentle Tai Chi sessions in the small garden outside. Hundreds joined these meetings, coming not only to learn, but to connect, to find joy in life's simple moments. On warm afternoons, I'd sit by a rustic wooden table, watching people laugh and talk, a happiness so profound swelling inside me. I saw people like me, who had endured pain and loss, now finding each other, sharing, supporting, and passing on strength to live better every day. The small gatherings at Moonlight were not merely social occasions, They were places where everyone could express themselves, share life stories, and teach precious lessons accumulated over the years. Laughter, tears of understanding, and tight embraces formed an invisible yet powerful bond among us all. Tending the cafe, caring for each flower, listening to the everyday stories of regular guests, I realized that old age is not the end, but a new beginning. A chapter of love, sharing, and joy that never fades. I, Evelyn, am no longer the lonely, invisible woman in my son's life. I am a woman standing in the light of a small community filled with love. Moonlight is the warm flame burning bright, lighting the hearts of those growing old but never losing hope. And I know every day I live here is a meaningful, truly happy day. These gatherings were not just social meetups. They were spaces where people could express themselves, share their life stories, and pass on precious lessons accumulated over the years. Laughter, tears of empathy, and heartfelt embraces wove an invisible but powerful bond between us all. Caring for the cafe, tending to every flower pot, listening to the everyday stories of regular guests, I realized that old age is not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter of love, of sharing, and of an unending joy for life. I, Evelyn, am no longer the lonely, invisible woman in my son's life. I am a woman standing in the light of a small community filled with warmth and kindness. Moonlight is a burning flame of comfort, illuminating the hearts of those growing old yet never losing hope. And I know each day I live here is a meaningful day, a truly happy day. My emotions are tangled and hard to describe, joy mixed with astonishment and tears of gratitude. I remember the darkest days, when I was lonely, battling grief, when I nearly broke under the cold currents of life. It was in those moments that loved ones, old friends, new neighbors, and Carl, my reluctant manager, became my rock. They didn't just help me materially, sharing meals, helping fix up the house, but they were always there, listening, comforting, and giving me strength. I stopped dreaming of reconnecting with Mason and Lauren, a hope once so bright, now only a sad memory. I realized some relationships, no matter how close once, cannot be healed. And that doesn't make me weak or a failure. Instead, I choose to move forward, grasping the chance to build a new life, not just for myself, but for the community around me. With the inheritance money, I began fulfilling a long-held dream, opening a small cafe called Moonlight, the warm flame. This is a place I wanted to create, friendly, cozy, where people in the neighborhood could find comfort and a sense of belonging. A place that serves not just coffee, but stories, joys, and sorrows shared. Moonlight is not a fancy, glamorous cafe, but a spot where visitors can sit down, chat, read books, or simply feel peace amid the fast pace outside. I placed pots of lavender on the balcony, arranged simple wooden tables, hung small paintings by local artists, creating a scene both welcoming and warm. I am no longer the quiet ghost in my son's life. I am Evelyn, a woman standing in the light, strong, resilient, and full of hope for a bright future. Moonlight marks the beginning of a new journey, proof of fierce vitality and a love for life that never dies within my heart. Welcome to my YouTube channel, My Personal Stories. Here I share real stories from my life and from members of the Happy Seniors community. Each story is an experience, a lesson, a perspective on life and people, hoping to help you reflect deeply and cherish what you have. If you find these stories meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share so more people can watch and spread positive energy. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. I love reading them and learning how to improve the channel to bring even more value in the future. Thank you so much for your company and support.